Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the SoulPH and PPRG Soul Search webinar series for 2021. I will be your moderator and host, Greg Atienza, Executive Director of SoulPH. May we request everyone to accordingly change your names to, so that it's your real name, so that when we spotlight you, it will be easy to find you. And we will start after a few announcements. So you've read the protocol, so kindly mute your audio during the entire part of the webinar, but there will be an opportunity for you to speak during the open forum, and you can be spotlighted. We shall start with our opening prayer and immediately followed by the Philippine National Anthem. And so I would like to call on to lead us in a brief opening prayer, an elder of the BCBP, Brotherhood of Christian Businessmen and Professionals of the Las Piñas chapter, our brother Lito Pardo. Brother Lito.
Good evening, friends and countrymen. Tonight we gather as a people anxious and concerned about the state of our country and how we are addressing the scourge unleashed by COVID-19 pandemic. Oh yes, we long for healing and normalcy. We want to be healed and we want to be restored to good health and normal life. In response to our longings, allow me to mine some nuggets of wisdom from the Holy Scriptures, which hopefully can illumine further the discourse we will have tonight. As we pray for God's mighty presence in our midst, allow me to read from 2 Chronicles, chapter 7, verse 14. And I quote, "And my people who bear my name humble themselves and pray and look for me and turn from their wicked ways. Then I myself will hear from heaven and forgive their sins and restore their land." Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight penitent for the many transgressions we have committed against you, against our fellow men, and against your creation. We are confused of so many concerns and questions, preoccupying our minds nowadays. We need clear answers, reliable answers to our questions. We want to be liberated from the myriad of fake news and half-truths being peddled around us. Lord, we want to hear your voice tonight. Speak to us tonight. Allow us to hear your voice, your message of hope for all of us. May we hear them from the discourse, from the presentation, the question and answers that we will be having tonight. You have called the local government units to be at the forefront of our fight against COVID-19. Be with your people, Lord, and lead the battle for us, as you have done during the time of Abraham, the great exodus of Moses, the conquest of the promised land by Joshua and David. Be at the forefront of our battle against COVID-19 and other concomitant evils of this modern world. Lord, tonight we take to heart the important lessons we learned from this pandemic. This great disaster is indeed a great corrector. This reminds us of the important lessons that we seem to have forgotten, that all of creations are interconnected, and every creature is an integral part of the masterpiece of creation. May this collective lesson be transformed into a collective wisdom that will serve as a reset button for our humanity to journey towards a healthy, a happy, a more loving and caring world. Father, all this we ask in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, pero sa sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Upang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagatak tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw, ay hinatang tula, kawin sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang lang matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pang ay di magdidinig. Luman ang araw ng walhagit pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya na pagkay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Thank you very much, Brother Lito, for the prayer. Before we begin the proceedings proper, we would like to acknowledge our generous co-presenters and partners. We would like to acknowledge Mr. Edgar, who is here present, the President of Rotary Club of Makati Central, a co-presenter with SoulPH and the Public Policy Research Group. We also would like to acknowledge and thank Ms. Chacha Camacho, the Governor of the Rotary District of 3830, Rotary District 3830. Also, from the AIM Alumni Association, we would like to acknowledge its chairman, Robert Manabat, and its vice chair, Michael Sherwin Makatangay, strategic partners. Another strategic partner is the National College of Public Administration and Governance, ICMA Student Chapter, led by its co-president, Abby Modino, DPA candidate. And also present with her is SVP Ofelia Odilao Bisnar, as well as the rest of the ICMA Student Chapter Board of Directors. We thank you for your continuing support, friends. We also would like to acknowledge and thank Mr. Ogie Alcacid and Kirsty Munoz of the 18, as well Jerry and Sherbet Manalili of Indios Bravos Designs. And before we proceed to the webinar proper, we have a special performance, and backed by popular request, she sang in the last webinar, and well, one good round deserves another. She is the Aliw 2017 awardee, Best Classical Artist, the Aliw 2018 awardee for Crossover Artist. We have here to inspire us, before we start our webinar, let us welcome Miss Lara Maige.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you like this one. To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless Thank you, everybody.
Thank you again, Lara. You may show your appreciation and feedback, and you can send some comments to Lara's way through our chat box, and she might be available to answer them. So use the chat box for feedback or some other information you might want about Lara Maige. So thank you very much, Lara. We now proceed to our webinar proper. The song was not meant to preempt the singing of our resource speaker, but rather to inspire him, because we know that this is his favorite song, his anthem, so to speak. So our speaker is a former senator of the Republic. At that time, the youngest senator of the Republic from 1987 to 1992. He is also the former Laguna province governor and also the former Secretary of the Department of Interior and Local Governments, very eminently more than qualified to talk about the subject of LGUs, local government units. Let us welcome our resource person, none other than former Senator Joey Lina.
Maraming salamat sa iyo, Greg. Good evening, everyone. Let me first acknowledge the presence of our panel of reactors. Let me greet Senator Francis Tolentino and the President of the Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines, ULAP, Dax Kuwa. Let me also welcome the presence of Congressman Edgar Chatto, former Governor of Bohol, and the Secretary General of ULAP when I was its president sometime in the past. Congressman, let me acknowledge the mayor and former congressman of Iloilo City and the incumbent mayor Jerry Treñas. Mabuhay ka. And of course, the very popular, you might say, always answering questions on television interviews, the Undersecretary of the Department of Health, Undersecretary Rosario Vergeire. Magandang gabi po, Undersecretary. At sa inyong lahat, kasama na si Dean Marisol Ananias, the President of the Association of Law Schools. I wish to acknowledge also former Secretary of the Department of Health, Manolet Dairit. And to all of you, my students, we're taking up local government and constitutional law. And to all the law students and other students of discipline all over the land, magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. The title of this presentation is LGUs, Crucial in Defeating the COVID-19 Pandemic. Pero merong Tagalog under. Ang lokal para sa pag-angat ng Pilipinas. Ang ibig sabihin ng ang lokal, ang means ang nangungunang gagawa ay ang lokal. Kaya ang lokal sa pag-angat ng Pilipinas. Let me begin this presentation by saying that the right to health is a basic human right. There is no dispute about that. It's in our laws, it's in our in international treaties where we are signatory of. And of course, without dispute also, healthy people make a strong and happy nation. In our Constitution, it's very clear that it is the duty, it is our government's duty to make every Filipino healthy. And it is a state policy to protect and promote the right to health of the people and instill health consciousness among them. This is found in Section 15, Article 2 of the 1987 Constitution. Here's the sad news. As of yesterday, the world and Philippine statistics on COVID-19 is as follows. As far as cases are concerned globally, yesterday there were 110,435,805,000 cases. In our country, yesterday, 553,000 plus cases. The active globally is about 23 million when we round it up. In the Philippines yesterday, the active cases were registered at almost 30,000. The deaths globally yesterday was 2.4 million. In the Philippines, almost 12,000. Of course, a lot of people recovered. Globally, 85,328,000 plus. In the Philippines, 512,033 Filipinos recovered. As to jobs, 114 million people globally lost their jobs. Philippines, about 4.5 million. Unemployment in the Philippines is 10.4% of the labor force, which is the highest as far as government report is concerned, highest in 15 years. The economy in the world shrunk. World economy shrunk by 4.4%. And the GDP in the Philippines dropped by 9.5% in 2020. The worst decline since the Great Depression in 1930s, this 4.4%, the global decline in economy. And as far as our country is concerned, the biggest decline, this 9.5%, is biggest decline in recorded yearly output since 1946, post-World War II. Therefore, our health system is heavily challenged in the face of this COVID-19 pandemic. And in this presentation, therefore, this is how I will walk you through. This is the direction of the talk, so you are guided accordingly, and you will not get lost in the way. First is that what is the Philippine system, which is now being challenged by COVID-19? What is the role of local governments in the Philippine health system during crisis or no crisis, but especially during crisis? And in the process, we will review our health systems. What was the health system before Republic Act 7160 or the Local Government Code was enacted in 1991? What was the health system? Or what is the health system under the Local Government Code of 1991? There's another health system under a public health emergency, which was passed by Congress last 2019, and that is Republic Act 11332. And then we will discuss as the last health system in the battle or in the war against COVID-19, the regime under Executive Order 168, which I will explain later, was originated sometime in 2014. I mean, the executive order was issued in 2019. And then lastly, we will have conclusions and recommendations. So this is how we will go through this presentation in this webinar. So there are two questions to answer. What is the Philippine health system? And what is the role of local governments in this Philippine health system during a health crisis, or even during a situation where there is no health crisis? To answer these two questions, we will review the Philippine past and present health system. Past and present. so that we can determine determine appropriate health system that can provide services to the people, particularly in public health emergencies. What is that health system that we need during public health emergencies? And number three, to clearly delineate the roles of the national and local governments in the health system. And from this, we can draw conclusions and recommendations. So to begin with, and very, very briefly, this is the health system before the enactment of the Local Government Code of 1991. By the way, the Local Government Code took effect in January 1st of 1992. And as I will explain later, radical changes were brought about by Republic Act 7160 as far as our overall government system is concerned. Okay. Before the enactment of 7160, we have a system of a highly centralized government, and including the delivery of health services. It's highly centralized. It comes from the president. We have the DOH and the regional offices, hospitals, special hospitals, integrated provincial, city hospitals, the district health offices, field health offices, hospitals, rural health units, and barangay health stations. We have the provincial health office, city and municipal health office. So all of these are centrally directed, highly centralized. That is the system before the Republic Act 7160 was enacted took effect in January 1st, 1992. That was before. Now let's go to the system. By the way, under that highly centralized system, all health personnel, facilities, equipment, supplies are under the care of the national government. They have the control, they manage, they fund everything. Now, but there was a transformation of our government system, not only as far as health services are concerned, but also as far as other basic services are concerned. And this was with the enactment of Republic Act 9160, or what is now commonly known as the Local Government Code of 1991. Why a government transformation? It has been described, this Republic Act 7160 introduced the most massive changes in our government system. And the radical change included the delivery of health services. Why was this so? Well, our Constitution mandates that a local government code be enacted that will implement the constitutional policy which guarantees the autonomy of local governments. In the exact words of Section 24, Article 10 of the Constitution, the state shall ensure the autonomy of local governments. And in Section 3 of Article 10 of the Constitution, the Congress shall by law enact a local government code. And basically, in summary, to have a decentralized system of government. So our government system, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, was transformed from a highly centralized system to a highly decentralized system of government. Health, agriculture, social welfare services, and used to be under the management control and funding of the executive departments of health, agriculture, and welfare. They were devolved or transferred to LGUs after the effectivity of Republic Act 7160. But be reminded that in the local government code, partly devolved also were public works, partly, not entirely. Tourism, environment, natural resources, and even education. There's a partial devolution of certain functions of the national department with regards to these services. LGUs have the power and responsibility, as I already said, um, under the general welfare clause of local government code. And I'll explain that further. So, a government transformation happened under Republic Act 7160. And the principle involved is not just local autonomy in this transformation, the grand transformation. The other principle involved is the principle of subsidiarity, which simply means that things that can be accomplished by a lower level of authority must attend to those cases or works or actions, and a greater and higher social institution must not take over the duties of subordinate organizations and deprive it of its competence. Its purpose, rather, is to intervene in a subsidiary fashion when the lower organization find that the task is beyond them. This is the principle of subsidiarity, and which is being used even in modern times. This is an old principle, but this is also being used in modern times because it has been proven effective that a micromanagement of things of a given country or government will not be an effective way of doing so. Now, let me explain that the phrase that there is a great transformation or a grand transformation that took place, because in Section 16 of the Local Government Code, Congress devolved powers to local governments, and these powers are massive. These powers are expressly granted in the Local Government Code or necessarily implied therefrom, as well as powers necessary, appropriate, or incidental for the efficient and effective governance of a given territory or LGU, as well as powers to be exercised because they are essential to the promotion of the general welfare of the people or inhabitants living in a given local government unit. These powers are devolved. Before, these powers cannot be exercised by local governments. Local governments are mere adjunct of the executive department. While there had been talks about general supervision, not control, but in reality, before 7160, there was so much control by the national government of the local government so that they don't have autonomy, meaningful autonomy to speak of. Now, let me belabor this point, ladies and gentlemen, the extent of these powers granted or devolved to local governments. In Section 16, it clearly states that within every local government unit, without distinction, within every local government unit without distinction, whether province, city, municipality, or barangay, the following shall be ensured and supported by the local government unit. Number one, promote first is preservation and enrichment of culture, but the next one is promotion of health and safety. Enhance the right of the people to a balanced ecology, encourage and support the development of appropriate and self-reliant scientific and technological capabilities. Yung pala mga local governments, kinakailangan mayroong alam sa science and technology because trabaho nila is also encourage and support the development of scientific and technological capabilities. Improve public morals, trabaho rin ng local governments. Enhance economic prosperity, kinakailangan economic manager pala ang local governments. And social justice, katarungan panlipunan, kinakailangan tingnan ng local governments na mayroong pagkakapantay-pantay or mayroong equity man lamang sa mga mamamayan sa kanya-kanyang teritoryo. And promote full employment. Ayan, talagang economic manager. Full employment in economics means being able to provide jobs or livelihood to people in the territory who are willing and ready and prepared to work among the residents. Maintain peace and order. This is the traditional role of local governments, and preserve the comfort and convenience of their inhabitants. This is the catch-all phrase, comfort and convenience of the inhabitants. So, anong ibig sabihin nito? Everything and anything that will redound to the benefit of the people, promote their general welfare, sakop ng kapangyarihan ng mga gobyernong lokal. They have the power to pass legislation or ordinances. They have the power to formulate programs, activities, projects that will redound to the general welfare of the people, including comfort and convenience. Whatever that is, that's a wide range of services that can be delivered to the people. So much so that, ladies and gentlemen, napakalaki ng papel na ginagampanan ng gobyernong lokal sa kabuuan ng ating sistema ng gobyerno. And let me now go to the very specific service, which is the major the major part of this presentation, that health services, health and safety services by the local governments having been devolved to them. I will now concentrate on what the local government code says with regard to health and safety services that have been devolved. It's in Section 17 of the Local Government Code. Naku, tuwan-tuwa siguro yung mga kumukuha, Senator Francis, ng subject local government dito. Parang Local Government 101. What are the basic services and facilities? And I will just focus on health and safety. We will discuss, maybe there will be another webinar on local government and agriculture, local government and social welfare, local government and environment, local government and full employment, so on and so forth. Those are other important subject matter. But today, we will concentrate on local government and health and safety. Basic services that must be delivered by local governments. And the enumeration in the Section 17 of what basic services and facilities is not exhaustive. It's not complete. The section says, among other things, or including, including. In short, it does not convey ito lamang. Kung hindi, ito yung sample lang. Pwede pa madagdagan. Basic services and facilities on health and safety. These are the following. I'll go briefly through it. Halimbawa, sa barangay, barangay health and social welfare services, services and facilities related to hygiene and sanitation, going back health and social welfare services, which include maintenance barangay health center, daycare center, municipality health services, which include implementation of programs on projects, primary health care, maternal, child, communicable, non-communicable, access to primary, and so on and so forth. Province health services, which include hospitals and other tertiary health services. For a city, what the municipalities and provinces will have to deliver in terms of basic and services facilities can also be delivered by, and should be delivered by the cities. So these are the basic services and facilities that the local governments must deliver to their constituents in the name of health and safety. And that the national government may provide or augment the basic services and facilities assigned to a lower level of local government when such services or facilities are not made available, if made available are inadequate. So there you are. In summary, the Local Government Code of 1991, as far as health and safety is concerned, because that's what we're talking about, had been devolved, and the devolution means that equipment, personnel, facilities, hospitals, supplies, records, everything that used to be the responsibility of of the national government when before 7160 are now transferred or devolved to local governments. What happens to the regional offices of the Department of Health and the others, agriculture, social welfare, those services that have been devolved. The regional offices of national agencies or offices whose functions are devolved to local governments shall be phased out within 1 year from the approval of the code. Phased out. But such said national agencies and offices may establish such field units as may be necessary, and this is important. These field units may be established for monitoring purposes and providing technical assistance to local government units. So ganun na lang pala yung role nila vis-a-vis the local governments. Regional offices, kompleto ang organisasyon ng DOH. So from the DOH department proper to the regional, well, of course, the staff of the secretary, the undersecretary, assistant secretary, the bureaus are still there. Of course, we will discuss that too. The regional offices supposed to be phased out, but they can be established as monitoring units for purposes, for monitoring purposes and for providing technical service to local government units. Now, there you are. To summarize, this is the structure, organizational structure of the health system under Republic Act 7160. You have the president exercising general supervision. It's direct. The president exercising general supervision, not control. And this is very important, especially to law students. Iba yung control, iba yung general supervision. General supervision is to ensure that the local governments are performing their functions in accordance with law. Yun lang. May batas, itong function mo, ginagawa ng local governments yung kanyang function, how to do it, ano yung tactical, bahala siya, yun lang titingnan ng presidente. General supervision. How does the president do it? Through the Department of Interior and Local Government. So yun ang sa kanyang cabinet, yung kanyang alter ego. Yun ang kanyang ina-assign dito sa local governments, no? For supervision, not control. To control is to substitute one's judgment over a subordinate. Pwede mong i-counterman, pwede mong palitan. The president cannot do that unless the local government officials overstep their functions and therefore are violating the existing law. So ito yung health system under 7160. There's a in the province, the health system is under the care of and direction of the governor and the sanggunian, and the provincial governor exercise some oversight function over the municipal health offices and component cities health office, and the municipal health office also performs oversight function over the barangays, because each one has its own recognized autonomy and they have their own powers. Highly urbanized cities are also under general supervision of the president, and therefore the highly urbanized city government operates their health system down to the barangay health system. But there is an exception to this rule, no? That the DOH has only monitoring purposes and providing technical services, and I'll expound further on what that technical services are concerned. No, there are specific roles also of the DOH under the law. In case of pandemic, pestilence, and other widespread public health dangers, the Secretary of Health may upon direction of the President and in consultation with the local government unit concerned, temporarily assume supervision and control over health operations in any local government unit for a duration of the emergency, but in no case exceeding a cumulative period of 6 months. So this is a reminder to local government units that if they do not do their job well, the Secretary of Health may take over temporarily over their health operations. Now, so there you are. Before the 7160, during the effectivity of 7160, that's the health system. The executive department during the time of President Era, because of the confusion that happened as to the roles of local governments vis-a-vis the national government in terms of health and safety services, issued this executive order 102. Briefly, executive order 102 redirected the functions and operations of the Department of Health. This was issued in 1999. Local Government Code 1991, EO 102 was issued to clarify the roles of local government. The DOH was issued in 1999, and basically the EO says that DOH has been transformed from being a sole provider of health services to being a provider of a specific health services and technical assistance provider for health as a result of the devolution of basic services to local government units. Okay, number two, the DOH served as a national technical authority on health, one that will ensure the highest achievable standards of quality, healthcare, health promotion, health protection, and so on and so forth. So this is how the DOH responsibilities after the devolution of EO 102. This is clear in EO 192. It says that the mandate is as follows. There's so many, but I focus on those that have relevance to during health emergency. Sets national, number one, sets national health objectives, policy standards to guide local health systems. You see, setting health objectives, policy standards. Lead agency in health emergency response services, networking. Oh, let me emphasize that. Lead agency in health emergency response services. Letter C, National Technical Authority in Disease Control and Supervision. Capacity builder for LGUs, NGOs. Letter E, research, info, systems, partnership with private sector in development of biologicals, vaccines. Oh, let me emphasize that. Vaccines, drugs, etc. So this is one of the major responsibilities of DOH after devolution, as explained in EO 102. All right. So that's just to clarify the role of the DOH vis-a-vis the local government units. So when there's an emergency, what is the health system that should be operational? That's a very ticklish question. What should be the health emergency system that must be operational during public health emergency or when there's a crisis like COVID-19 pandemic? And I'd like to draw your attention to this, ladies and gentlemen. This has not been discussed in media, but this is very relevant. Congressman Chatto is presently a congressman, and they passed this Republic Act 11332 in 2019, April 26, 2019. What is this law about? This law is designed to protect the people from public health threats such as epidemics, public health emergencies that threaten public health and national security, which can undermine the social, economic, and political functions of the state. That is the objective of this law. It's stated in the statement of policy of the law passed by Congress and signed by President Duterte. This can be achieved through efficient and effective surveillance of notifiable diseases, including emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases, diseases for elimination and eradication, epidemics, and health events, including chemical, radionuclear, and environmental agents of public health concern, and provide an effective response. Let me emphasize that. And provide for an effective response system in compliance with World Health, international health regulations. And the law continues. And this is important. I'm quoting from the law. The state recognizes disease surveillance and response systems of the DOH. And I hope the Yusek Vergeire is taking taking note of this. The state recognizes disease surveillance. Ano yung mga sakit? Kung ano yung mga sakit? Leptospirosis, ano ito, baka may COVID, etc., etc. And its local counterparts as the first line of defense to epidemics and health events of public concern that pose risk to public health and security. To public health and security. What's the first line of defense under Republic Act 11332? To epidemics and health events of public concern? It is the DOH and its local counterparts. And when epidemics of national or international concerns occur in the country, the law says that the DOH secretary is authorized to declare as such, except when the same threatens national security, in which case the President of the Republic of the Philippines shall declare a state of public health emergency and mobilize governmental and non-governmental agencies to respond to the threat. Therefore, this health system under Republic Act 11332 is designed precisely to meet public health emergencies. This is Republic Act 11332. And this is how the organizational chart is therefore will show under 11332. There you are. We have the President. We have the DOH as the lead agency. But the DILG, because it's acting on behalf of the President and it has under its charter or under the administrative code, supervises the local governments. But the lead, as far as meeting the emergency is concerned, is the Department of Health. I hope this is clear, that we have a law which is alive, which is designed to fight and respond to public health threats, including epidemics. Now, let's go to the fourth system of health system. Fourth health system. One before RA 7160, during 7160, under Republic Act 11332, and now we will discuss the present health system for COVID-19, which is also a health system that we are now operating to combat COVID-19. Okay. So after DOH Secretary confirmed the local transmission, I think this was sometime in February, President Duterte announced the outbreak of COVID-19 constitutes an emergency that threatens national security, which requires a whole-of-government response, and issued Proclamation 922 declaring a state of public health emergency throughout the Philippines. However, the President decided to convene the IATF, the famous IATF, which is Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, IATF EID, last January 2020, last year. And from membership of 7 to 27. Before, 7 lang, naging 27. And the IATF EID promotes a national action plan against COVID-19 and created a national task force against COVID-19 to implement it. As a backgrounder, ladies and gentlemen, the IATF EID was created through an executive order. It's not a law. 168, that's the number of the executive order issued by then President Benigno Aquino in 2014 for the management of emerging infectious diseases. The EO saw the need for an intersectoral collaboration to establish preparedness and ensure efficient government response to assess, monitor, contain, control, and prevent the spread of any potential epidemic in the Philippines. At that time, only 7 members. Under President's order, increased na ang IATF to 27. It's the entire cabinet, almost the entire cabinet. The chairman is the Secretary of Health. Of course, everyone is under the president, but the chairman of this is the DOH secretary. This is a task force, and he has a co-chair, the cabinet secretary, and the DNR secretary, and 24 more members. DA, DBM, DE, Finance, almost all. I think the justification is a whole government. It's a whole government approach and whole society approach. So this is the health system for COVID-19 under EO 168. The president. There you are, the IATF, AID, the NTF, National Task Force. They created also an implementing arm. You have the IATF, then the sets of policies and guidelines implemented by ITF. Then, of course, you have the counterpart of NTC, COVID-19. I forgot to include here the regional. There is a regional task force against COVID-19 and then down to the provinces. I should have put the regional in the organization. The National Task Force, COVID-19, is a whole organization, a whole bureaucracy. And this is it. The IATF, NTF proposed organizational structure. It's a strategic policy. Can you go back to the previous one, just so our participants can see how elaborate and I may say a little complex. There's a response cluster, COVID-19 vaccine cluster. We have a recovery cluster, and under them are technical working groups from all across from the agencies of government. And then the regional task force, and then the local, provincial, down to the barangay task forces. This is the regional task force, and then the local task force. I will not go into detail of that. Okay, all right. Now, take note. This 11332 Republic Act 11332 was 2019. This EO 168 was 2014, but used in 2020 to meet the pandemic. I'm just stressing the point. From 168 in 2014 to 2019, the ITF was not in operation. But in 2019 was designed precisely that if there's going to be public health emergency, there is this definite mechanism on how to cope with the public health emergency. It's a special design law to meet head-on any public health emergency. Now, in conclusion, it is interesting to note that the whereas clause of 168 as originally written in 2014, there seems to be a confusion as to the role of DOH, which is still quoting the Administrative Code of 1987, which was already clarified under EO 102 with the one that I explained. So anyway, this slight matter, but that can lead to confusion as to the roles of local governments and the DOH. The last February 7, Secretary Galvez, the NTF Chief Implementer and Vaccine Czar, General Galvez, announced on my teleradio that the best scenario when this COVID-19 will end, with the hope that the vaccine will be rolling as planned. The best case scenario for the vaccination of 50 to 70 million Filipinos, in accordance with the national COVID-19 vaccination program, is by end 2021. 2021, best scenario. And the worst case scenario is by end of the second quarter of 2022. Ganun daw. Yun. So, that's okay if that's the case, if that is the scenario that our government sees, no? By 2021, roll out na yung 50 to 70 vaccines, then worst case is second quarter of 2022. Vaccinating 50 to 70 million Filipinos, or 70% of Philippine population, will achieve herd immunity, which means that when herd immunity is achieved, the COVID-19 virus will be contained. All right. That announcement of Secretary Galvez is reason to be optimistic that the new normal in Philippine life will happen by end of this year, or worse, by second quarter of next year. Admittedly, there are signs of economic recovery. The trend has flattened, although yesterday the case is about 1,900 yesterday. In conclusion, whatever system there is in place, it must be fully implemented to the fullest and must be supported by the whole of government and whole of society. We are in the middle of a war, and a radical departure from the present system while the country is waging a war against COVID-19 might do more harm than good. Along the way, however, our leaders can and should make adjustments in the system when necessary to achieve certain objectives and hasten the process. Incidentally, that's a bit of bad news that we need an indemnification fund before the manufacturers will send to us the vaccine that was supposed to arrive within February or middle of February. But the bill is still, in Congress. I don't know for what reason there have been excuses, but the indemnification fund is not in place. So President Duterte has certified the bill as urgent, meaning the three-day rule, separate days of hearing will be waived. That's the effect of when a bill is certified as urgent by the president. In whatever health system, after the enactment of Republic Act 7160, whether under 7160, under 11332, and under the present task force organizational setup, IATF, ID, and NTF as implementer, whatever system there is, the local governments, as I explained fully, since powers have been devolved, including power to deliver health services to the people, the local governments play a crucial role in defeating this COVID-19 pandemic. So what are the recommendations? One, solve problems in government purchase, delivery, and rollout of vaccines. We know that that's what we're hoping for. I mean, we are hoping for the vaccine. That's a game changer. But we have to see to it that the worst case scenario is also anticipated. What are the stumbling blocks? What are the hurdles that will impede the rollout of the vaccine? The local governments have already prepared. I know this for a fact. A lot of local governments have prepared. They have their simulation. They have their storage facilities. They have the health workers organized. They have the procedures, including the last phase where the patients or the ones vaccinated will stay before they can go home, so that the adverse effects, if any, side effects, if any, will first be detected. Number two, government public info campaign to pre-register for vaccine. We should help them. The NGOs should also help in this campaign. The DILG and DOH so strictly monitor LG response to IATF directives to correct gaps and lapses. I think DILG is doing it, but I know some local governments are still not in the loop. Mayroon pa rin natutulog sa pansitan. So DILG must do its monitoring work together with DOH. DILG to provide checklists for LGUs so that LGUs will know exactly what to do under this health crisis. And I have a book of Senator Francis Tolentino, ako na mag-endorse, Pandemic Handbook for Philippine Local Governments by Senator Francis Tolentino. Lahat ng gagawin ng local government units, pati na ng taong bayan ay nandito. It comes very handy as a good reference, no? It's part of the campaign. It should be part of the campaign to disseminate all the information to our people on what to do and what local governments must do. Complete LGU preparation and training to administer COVID-19 vaccines. Tuloy-tuloy ito, 2 doses. Number 6, publish compliant and non-compliant LGUs. I think it's high time that this is done para to wake up the LGUs that are sleeping on the job. And for DILG to file administrative or criminal cases to compel, to deter LGUs from non-compliant and for not doing their job. These are the short-term measures that I thought should be implemented soonest. But I know there are a lot of local governments now really on top of the job and in fact purchasing their own medicine or vaccine. The medium term, review Republic Act 11332 and public health emergencies, and I commend this to Congressman Ed Chatto because they passed this law, and this is precisely designed to meet public health emergencies. Do we want the DOH under 11332 or a national task force? Although the chairman of the IATF is the DOH secretary, but what is happening now is under 11332. The commander is the DOH, parang dito sa National Task Force, chairman of the board, si Secretary Duque, with specific functions to be carried out as ordained by the National Task Force. I mean, there is some disconnect there, and the National Task Force is very elaborate in its organization. Under 11332, lahat na ng bureaus doon, nakalagay na kung anong trabaho nila during health emergency. I failed to mention that. Organized na sa 11332 and saka implementing rules and regulations ng 11332, nandun na lahat yung kung ano yung dapat gawin. It can be improved, of course, but the overall setup is there. LGU as lead implementer, of course, there is no doubt about it. And the DOH set up to respond. What is wrong? The organization of DOH is also elaborate. It has regional offices which they have transformed into Center for Health Development, and they have representative to the LGUs, and they are exercising. They're doing their job to establish standards and to monitor compliance with the standards. Maybe they should further strengthen this monitoring of compliance with the standards. Ensure action on Mandanas Garcia Supreme Court ruling. This addressed, and I hope the ULAP will be more proactive in this, ensure that the DBM will follow strictly the Mandanas Garcia Supreme Court ruling on LGU share in national taxes, because it is expected that the LGUs will have a bigger share of the national taxes by 2022 when the Supreme Court ruling will be implemented, because the Supreme Court correctly interpreted that the collection of the customs and other national taxes should be included in the pool of national taxes where 40% of the local government share shall be taken. There is a move to increase the share of local governments from 40 to 50%. Either by Congress, by amending the local government code, but if Congress does not want to amend that provision in the local government code, increasing the 40% to 50% share of local governments, then I will go along with the move of the local governments to amend directly the Constitution through the petition a petition initiative and for petition petition directly going to the people for a passage of a constitutional amendment, directly pegging at 50% the share of local governments from national taxes. And then there should be, Congress must pass a law on minimum health standards para merong clout and with sanctions, that if these minimum health standards are not complied with after warning, etc., warning, consultation with the local governments, they do not do their job, even if their funds have already been increased by next year, then there should be appropriate sanctions. They should be prepared and studied well, but I think there should be a carrot and stick with funds rolling. There should be accountability. And then the regional development councils carry out the task to complete the administrative decentralization and strengthen local autonomy and accelerate socio-economic growth. It's in Section 14 of Article 10 of the Constitution, which I've been batting for the longest time, that budgeting must consider the output coming from the regional development councils, because it is ordained in the Constitution. They have a role to play, and the power of the president is plenary as far as the RDCs are concerned. So those are the medium term and short and medium term measures that I'm recommending. And as a final say, the two words that we must bear in mind is that we should be prepared. Ebola, SARS, SARS-CoV, MERS-CoV, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. And because of climate change, we do not know when the next, after this, when the next pandemic, God forbid, there will be one. But we have to be prepared. We cannot just take this matter lightly. We know the impact of the pandemic on the lives of our people, on the economy, and hunger already stalks the land. Prices of commodities have increased, and so on and so forth. And our children are not able to go to school, and so on and so forth. We have to be prepared. Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know on which day your day will come. So too, you also must be prepared. For at an hour you do not expect, the Son of Man will come. Matthew 24, verses 32, 44. Praise the Lord. Thank you for listening. May God bless you and keep safe.
Thank you very much, Senator Lina. We will now give Senator Lina a breather. And before we proceed to the reactors, and that's very substantive, don't go away. We do have a special performance. But before that, some administratives. Very quickly, we would like to acknowledge and thank Dean Marisol Ananias, the President of the Association of Law Schools, as well as all the other deans of colleges and law schools present in this webinar. Likewise, we saw and would like to acknowledge former Department of Education Secretary, Brother Armin Luistro. He's participating in the webinar. And likewise, we'd like to thank Attorney Alder Del Lloro, the co-president of ICMA Student Chapter, of course, one of our strategic partners. And to those questions in the chat box about, is there going to be a certificate for this webinar? The answer is yes. There will be an e-certificate if you stay on until the end. And of course, we will be having the link and the QR code for you to obtain access to the same. And then there were queries about, will there be a PowerPoint? Is the PowerPoint available for this distribution? And there were also a few reports of audio loss. The good news, ladies and gentlemen, fellow citizens, is that we shall be uploading this webinar in our Facebook site, facebook.com/SoulPH2020. So you can have access to the entire thing, but we're halfway only finished. More substance to follow. But at this point, just like a vaccination needs 2 shots, at least for the ones existing right now, we have a booster from a special performer. And again, I call back Miss Lara Maiget to continue inspiring us with another song. Lara?
Hi, Sir Greg. Thank you very much. Here's something I believe we all know. The hills are alive with the sound of music, with songs they have sung for 1,000 years. The hills fill my heart with the sound of music. My heart wants to sing every song it hears. My heart wants to beat like the winds of the birds that rise from the lake to the trees. My heart wants to sigh like a chime that flies from a church on a breeze, to laugh like a brook when it trips and falls over stones on its way, to sing through the night like a lark who is learning to pray. I go to the hills when my heart is lonely. I know I will hear what I've heard before. My heart will be blessed with the sound of music, and I'll sing one song. Here is a more appropriate song for our webinar today. A dream that will need all the love you can give every day of your life, for as long as you live. Climb every mountain, ford every stream, follow every rainbow, till you find your dream. Thank you for all your comments. Follow every rainbow, till you find Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lara.
Thank you, Sir
Guys,
Greg.
in order for us to convince Lara to come back, maybe some positive reinforcement with the chat box. In the meantime, Lara, stay there. So we'll have a group shot with Senator Lina.
All right.
May we have the photo right now before we let Lara go?
Hi, Senator Lina.
Okay, are we done? Thank you very much. Well, there's a reaction here. You can give an applause or in the chat box. Here's a clap. Thank you very much, Lara. We hope you can
Thank you
join
very
us in
much.
future
Thank you
webinars.
for having me. Thank you so much.
Balik ka. All right. With that, we can proceed back to work. This time from our illustrious panel of reactors. So first off the bat, I would like to introduce none other than the chairman of the Senate Committee for Local Government. I would like to introduce Senator Francis N. Tolentino.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Senator Lina. Siguro I have nothing more to add after your very extensive presentation, but given the time allotted me, and I would just venture into supplementing what Senator Lina mentioned a while ago. I would first start with a brief history of all of these things. I would go to the United States as a model, not because COVID-19 started from China or Wuhan, but to give our local officials a historical glimpse on what started before. All the heroes of epidemics, pandemics, came from the ranks of LGUs, the mayors. The American Civil War could have been decided on either way. The British could have won, Washington could have won, but there was one major factor that was never been described in history. It's the smallpox epidemic, which hit both the British side and the American troops. After the war, Philadelphia was hit. That was the site of the First Republic. But there was one hero. The name is Mayor Matthew Clarkson. Nag-alisan na lahat yung mga nandun sa Philadelphia. Naiwan lang si Mayor Clarkson, a local government official, to fight the smallpox epidemic. The same is true with New York during the cholera epidemic. The same is true with the 1918 pandemic in San Francisco, Mayor Rolfe. So the mayor of New York was the one who invented the concept of health boards. Wala pang health boards noon. They established the health boards. They called it first the health committee. So that is what probably is now enshrined likewise in our local government code. And if you look at our local government code, our health boards are given enough functions and mandates. For instance, the services that the health boards can do are the following: health education, control of locally endemic diseases such as malaria, dengue, immunization, polio, tuberculosis, etc., etc. And the same is true. The same is true with the specific functions of municipalities. For municipalities, under Title V of the Local Government Code, the municipality is in charge of communicable and non-communicable disease control services. And that would include COVID. Even without Bayanihan, even Bayanihan 1, Bayanihan 2, and all the latest laws, it is enshrined in the local government code that communicable and non-communicable disease control services are functions of the local health board. Ano po yung kulang? Kagaya nung sinabi ni Senator Lina, ang kulang ay pondo. Wala talagang na-devolve. So we're happy to note that the President the other day issued Memorandum Order number 51, and this has something to do with the procurement of the vaccines, enabling now the LGUs to utilize more than 15% as advance payment for the procurement of vaccines. And this is what we are going to do in the days ahead, starting Monday. We will be tackling and hopefully we will be approving a certified measure authorizing the LGUs to purchase their vaccines. And this representation would be introducing an amendment that would include donations, because there will come a time that other LGUs, perhaps from abroad, will also be donating to their sister cities in the Philippines. And there probably might come a time when LGUs in the Philippines with excess supplies of vaccines will be donating to another sister municipality or lesser financially capable municipality in the Philippines. So that would be covered by that law. But there is one provision here. Take note of the law students present and even the law deans listening. There is one provision in the law, in the bill, which I will probably be tackling this coming Monday in the form of the usual debates, alam to ni Senator Lina, the COVID vaccination will not be compulsory. It will not be compulsory. It is not mandatory. Until we reach that, Yusek Vergeire can correct me if I'm wrong, until we reach that 75 to 80% level, that will be the herd immunity. So we still have 30% or 20% unvaccinated. And the vaccination will not just last for 1 year. It may be for 2 consecutive years or probably 3, depending on the variants. So this is not going to be mandatory. But there is a provision in the proposed bill, and I invite the attention of the Lodins present, which calls for the issuance of a COVID-19 passport. The COVID-19 passport will serve as your proof that you have been vaccinated. But no offense, but given the craft and innovation of some of our countrymen, you probably realize what happened in Boracay. Nakagawa nga sila ng fake na COVID-19 test certificate, baka maabuso rin. So ang kinakatakutan ko rito is this. If the governors are listening, once this is enacted into a law, the COVID-19 passport should not be utilized as another requirement, for instance, for employment purposes, for enrollment purposes, for your business permit licensing requirements. The COVID-19 passport should just be your personal document, signed by your doctor when you were vaccinated, etc. But it should not be a requirement, because we have one-stop laws, one-stop shop laws. We have ease of doing business laws, and we would not want this to be another burden, another requirement which could serve as a discriminatory measure for those probably who have no COVID-19 passports. Paano naman halimbawa yung sa isang malayong probinsya na hindi nakabakuna pero sumunod sa protocol, lahat ng quarantine, hindi siya dinapuan ng sakit, talagang malakas, mag-a-apply na magkolehiyo, wala siyang vaccine passport. Dapat po hindi dumating sa ganito. This will be the items that I'll be clarifying. But then again, I think with the promise of the vaccine arriving in a few weeks time, ang Japan, wag kayo matakot, ang Japan last week lang nagsimula. Yung iba naman nagsimula pero apparently mas marami pang variants na dumarating. Palagay ko nasa tama lang tayong sitwasyon, and then all we have to do even after the vaccination process is ongoing is still to follow the required protocols. Again, going back to history, the champions here, the heroes here would be the local government officials, the mayors, the governors, the vice mayors. There was a huge historical debate before who is correct, the doctor or the mayor. It turned out that the history would show this, that the mayor was correct, because years ago, mind you, 300 million died during that smallpox epidemic during this 20th century. And during the cholera epidemic in New York, the question was whether the source of the cholera was miasmatic, meaning the air generated by rotten organic rats or garbage. But apparently the mayors won, because they were able to prove that cholera is a waterborne disease. So you have to have clean water, clean supply of water, and that's the job of the mayors. Our water districts, our water supplies, our level 3, level 2 barangay water supply system. That's the job of the mayor. So ultimately, after this pandemic is over, not to demean the role of the national government, the heroes here would be our local officials. This will be decided in the front line. This will be decided in the battlefield. The mayors, the local nurses, the local doctors, the LGUs will be the one delivering the goods for us. So, Senator, thank you for inviting me here. I have a lot of materials likewise to show. Siguro huli na lang ito, nakakain naman lahat na. This is a picture of the picture of the previous inoculations during the early smallpox days. Nakikita niyo po? So, yung smallpox before, maswerte na tayo ngayon kasi iba-vaccinate tayo, may hiringgilya. Yung dati po, kahanap po ng isang tao na mayroong smallpox, tutusukin po ng karayom, yung lilipatan, tutusukin, tapos yung nana doon sa kabila ng isang taong may smallpox, ililipat po doon na mga hanggang 20 saksak. Kaya ganito po yung itsura noon. And that's the only way you get inoculated during those days. Eh ngayon meron na tayong bakuna. So thanks to the advancement of science, malapit na po ito. And I hope we can keep our composure as a nation. We have been going through this for almost a year. Hintayin na lang po natin and follow our national leadership, and most of all, follow our governors, follow our mayors, follow our local officials, and cooperate. Maraming salamat, Senator Lina.
Thank you very much, Senator Tolentino. After all the 5 reactors have given their part, there can be time still for a kind of a round table. So we might hear later more from Senator Tolentino. Right now, I'd like to call on our next reactor for his 3-minute reaction to Senator Lina's proposals. Let us welcome Congressman Edgar M. Chatto, who also happened to be former governor of Bohol province. Congressman Edgar Chatto.
Thank you very much to my dear colleagues in public service, Senator Lina, Senator Francis Tolentino, Quirino Governor Dakila and Carlo, Iloilo City Mayor Treñas, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario, and to all those present in this Zoom forum, good evening to everyone from the province of Bohol. Before I share my brief response, allow me to give a humble salutation to the Senator and Presenter Lina. I worked with a good senator when we founded the Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines, or what we now commonly call the ULAP. We served as incorporators when he was head of the League of Provinces, as governor of Laguna, and I was head of the Vice Governor's League of the Philippines as Vice Governor of Bohol then. So my dear friend, Senator Lina, I laud your passion in advocating for local autonomy by highlighting once again the crucial role of LGUs in defeating COVID-19. 11 months into this global pandemic, one word comes to my mind, and that's TEST, or test. The novel coronavirus, or COVID-19, has tested humanity in every possible way, unlike anything we've seen before. The COVID-19 pandemic is the present-day litmus test for the readiness of our people, fortitude, resilience, and response of individuals, families, businesses, institutions, and governments around the world. And the big question was how well the Philippines is faring in its response to COVID-19 pandemic. And this is real and valid question. But it is a question that is unfair to government. It is akin to judging an ocean by the drops of water in it. You see, while we are witnesses to this global phenomenon, as we watch now how the situation occurs in various countries, we are nevertheless direct participants as well. In the presentation of my dear colleague, Senator Lina, he clearly explained the history of the devolution of public services, specifically healthcare, as well as recommendations, both short and medium terms, to maximize this devolved system of local governance. And the intent, I believe, is to put into perspective the distinct roles of the various levels of governance in the country's pandemic response. As an initial premise, I think we all agree the COVID-19 response is a test of strength between the national and local governments. One of the first and very fundamental tests is the readiness of the local healthcare systems around the country to face a pandemic of global proportions. At the onset of the pandemic, both national and local governments are forced to assess the strengths and weaknesses of the healthcare system within their respective jurisdictions, provinces, cities, municipalities. I think there is a consensus that there's generally a big gap at the start of the pandemic when it comes to the readiness of our healthcare system, especially in addressing infectious diseases, testing, contact tracing, and protocols. But gauging 11 months, hence the general agreement now is that we have substantially matured and has clear vision on how to go forward, not only in the short term, but also more importantly in the long term. In the province of Bohol, we had to do a quick and candid assessment of our existing public and private healthcare systems at the onset of the pandemic. We are grateful because all are cooperative and up to the task, especially so that the tourism department is always considered our province as a pilot travel destination, as one of the country's tourism bubbles. We're very conscious and intentional. We make sure that all stakeholders are of one mind in ensuring that health protocols are set in place and are strictly enforced. We are blessed, of course, because while Bohol we had COVID cases, especially with our RWs and SIs coming home, our community has worked across sectors, from the medical sector, government sector, the private sectors, to provide the necessary response. And the second test is the synergy between the interagency task force at the national level and the local governments at the grassroots. I concur with the good Senator Lina that there is seeming disconnect in some areas of governance, among others, in terms of communication, protocols, resources, and supervision. While programs are being announced at the national level, transfer of funds at the local level is not fast to follow. While I attest to the capacities of LGUs, I submit that there is a need for constant updating and technical support from the national government. Strengthening our health sector through improved health facilities and health services is a continuing campaign of local governments as well. As governor of the province of Bohol for 9 years, I can speak with authority that the budget is really a challenge for the health sector. It is for this reason that the additional budget of the LGUs through the Mandanas ruling is a very much welcome note. However, while critical, funds from the Mandanas ruling is far from being the manna from heaven that will be enough to sustain each and every need of the LGUs. The world of pandemics will not end. Hopefully, this will be the last in our generation, but definitely this will not be the last of humanity. With or without pandemic, having a strong healthcare system under a strong national program and with strong local government support is necessary in every LGU. And the test of pandemic have opened unique opportunities for policy and institutional reforms. In Congress, there are a lot of measures filed, not only to address the COVID-19 pandemic, especially to give long-term support to those heavily affected by the Nihan laws, are just starters. As the chair of the Committee on Climate Change, I am compelled to raise the issue of climate change in this whole pandemic scenario, if you would indulge. First, because if not addressed, we may face the same global devastation as COVID-19 on the impact of climate change sooner than later. And second, because a healthy planet means fewer diseases. Scientists have suggested that tackling climate change can reduce the damage caused by other extreme events, such as pandemics, especially as it relates to associated health impacts. I am aware that the present time has given the Earth the space to breathe. However, those gains will be for nothing if we do not change our behaviors. Last year, the House Committee on Climate Change passed 2 landmark resolutions. And these are, the first is the declaration of a national climate emergency in the country, and the second is to urge the government to file the country's nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And I always espouse that post-pandemic, we need not only a new normal, but a better normal. I also would like to highlight and strengthen the advocacy that there must be amendments to certain laws. For example, in 11332, that we might have to use the oversight powers of Congress to look into how it was implemented and carried out. Let me end also by saying that we have a big room to play for the local government. I do agree that since the local government code was implemented, a lot of avenues for improvement in the area of how local officials can really man their local government units and use their powers, their vast powers under local government code. And of course, the support of the resources that should be brought to the local level. This is very material in seeing to it that the LGUs are able to make use of their ingenuity and innovation. Thank you, and good evening.
Thank you very much, Congressman Chatto. Please stay so we can have Senator Lina and you for a duet photo. Senator Lina and Congressman Chatto. Okay. Oh, sinama na ako. Sige. Ayan. Much better. Okay, thank you. And before I get into trouble, we'd like to call back Senator Tolentino this time with Senator Lina because I omitted my mistake. Sorry. Okay. And that should do it. Thank you very much. We will have a group photo. Sorry, Senator Tolentino. Nakaligtaan ko lang. We will proceed with the panel of reactors, this time from the local government sector. I'd like to introduce the President of the Union of Local Authorities in the Philippines, or ULAP, as was mentioned. He is also the Governor of Quirino Province, Dakila Carlo, Governor of Quirino Province.
Thank you, sir. Magandang gabi po sa ating lahat. To my idols, Senator Joy Lina and of course, Senator Tolentino, one of the hardworking congressmen, Congressman Chatto, who was former governor, and we were together as vice governors in the past as well. To Mayor Jerry Treñas, who is used to be my colleague in Congress and now the Iloilo City Mayor, and USEC Vergeire, who is ably communicating the thrusts of the DOH. Sa lahat po ng mga law students, law professors, deans of law schools, and all the people tuning in, magandang gabi po sa ating lahat. Sa aming salita, naimbang garabi, kada tayo amin na po. I think I'm way over my head in this forum, but thank you for inviting me and having ULAP as part of this forum. Puro mga legal minds pala ang nandito at parang nanliliit po ako. Hindi po kasi ako law school graduate or lawyer. I was educated in the field of business administration. So medyo fish out of water po tayo ngayong gabi. Pero I'd like to react on a few things. First, very elucidating, very enlightening po yung presentation and very accurate po ang mga discussions ni Senator Joey Lina. Sir, talagang napakagaling ng inyong appreciation ng chronological devolution ng functions, especially in terms of health devolution. Tama po kayo. I'd like to echo what you said. Dinevolve po yung function, dinevolve yung responsibility, pero pagdating po sa pondo, sa empowerment ng pondo, hindi po na-devolve ang sapat na pondo. But even if that's the case, marami pong LGU ang tumutugon at nagsi-step up po sa sitwasyon ngayon. Kaya sang-ayon din po ako sa sinabi ni Senator Tolentino na marami pong LGUs, maraming mayors, marami po tayong mga governors dyan na nagsi-step up at sila po ang nasa front lines. Pero gusto ko po sana idagdag. I'm sure this is also in the mind of Senator Tolentino, yung mga barangay captains, yung mga barangay health workers, yung mga barangay officials, they're also doing their bit. They're the ones going to our purok. They're the ones, nung naka-lockdown tayo, nagdadala ng pagkain. Ngayon sa vaccination, mararamdaman na naman natin ang halaga nito mga barangay officials. And they're really, their importance cannot be overstressed in this fight against COVID. Sa tingin ko po, ang tamang nangyayari ngayon ay ang Congress, both House and Senate, correctly coined the term bayanihan. No, this is really the solution to the problem. This is really what we will need and what needs to be done. Magtulong-tulungan po, national government, maybe cascading some national strategies and policies, giving directions and guidelines, and giving support by way of supplies, by way of vaccines, by way of funding and other necessary support. Yun po ang kailangan from national government. Dito naman po sa provincial, city, and municipal is really just groundwork. Kailangan mag-master listing, kailangan i-survey yung mga tao, kailangan ihanda, i-preposition yung mga vaccination posts, yung supplies, yung schedules, kailan ba dadating yung logistics. Napakarami po ng napakalaking undertaking nito. Gusto ko rin pong mag-react ng konti doon sa sinabi ni Senator Tolentino na kanina na meron siyang apprehensions about the passport. To be honest, hindi ko rin po masyadong alam yung details niyan. I think that is an introduction. Kasi a large part po of the push for this bill that the House and the Senate are so generously spending their time fast-tracking is really from the LGUs and from ULAP. At nagpapasalamat ako sa mabilis na tugon ng Kongreso at ng Senado at sa kanilang all-out support. Yung sa passport po, I think it's an insertion coming from a different sector, well-meaning sector, of course, trying to help improve the bill. And we welcome the suggestion, Senator, pero siguro a word of reminder lang, maybe Yusek Rosette can help me here, and she's really the doctor here who can educate us. Ang pagkaintindi ko po sa vaccine is that hindi po ibig sabihin kung nabakunahan tayo ay hindi na tayo pwedeng hindi na tayo mahahawa or hindi na tayo pwedeng maging agent ng COVID. Ibig sabihin hindi na tayo madadapuan at hindi na tayo makakapaghawa ng iba. I think the purpose of the vaccine is really when we have that added immunity, it will make the effect of COVID on our system much less deadly. Sabihin, milder na lang ang tatama sa ating katawan. So if it's going to be a requirement for travel, maybe it's not going to be effective kung may passport ka na nabakunahan ka. Hindi kasi ibig sabihin na hindi ka na mahahawa or hindi ka na makakahawa. So let's ask the experts. Maybe they can guide us through refining that portion, Senator. Panghuli na lang po, balik po ako dun sa pag-usapan ng bayanihan. Ang experience po namin sa Quirino, there are a few things that worked for us. Number one, we were very preemptive. As early as February, in fact, as early as January, napapanood na po natin sa international media what was happening to China and other parts of the world. So as early as February 10th, nagkaroon na po tayo ng state of preparedness dito sa aming lalawigan. At as soon as the President declared the lockdown, the same day we issued an executive order. We had a meeting of the local Dream Council and we executed the instructions of the President. And then because of that, we had to communicate. We communicated each day what was happening, the decisions that we were making in the council and how we were going to fight the pandemic together as one community. So for the first 7 months of the pandemic, up to the month of October, if I'm not mistaken, wala po kaming naging COVID case. So the key was really helping each other, following the rules, communicating daily what was happening and the decisions that were being made, and how people should manage their own lives so that they can be protected against the COVID-19. And I think that will still be the case on how we will roll out this vaccination. Iko-communicate, ipapaliwanag, voluntary ang pagbabakuna, and we will make sure kung sakalin man may adverse events after the vaccination, that everything will be taken care of. So yun lang po. At again, thank you to everybody, and thank you for inviting ULAP to be part of this forum.
Thank you very much, Governor Kua, for very action-filled sharing. Now we go to from the provincial level to city. And I'd like to call on, oh, sorry. First, we'll have a photo session with Governor Kua and Senator Lina. Duet lang, duet. Thank you very much. We now proceed with our fourth reactor for his 3-minute reaction. The illustrious mayor of progressive Iloilo City. Let us welcome Mayor Jerry Treñas.
Thank you very much, Mayong Gabi, Senator Lina, Senator Francis Tolentino, Governor Dax, Congressman Chatto, and the rest of the invited guests. First of all, I am very thankful for this rare opportunity to also share my ideas on the matter. I found the presentation very extensive, and I really feel the disconnect sometimes between the IATF, the DOH, and the local government, and there is really a need to clarify the respective roles of the LGU, the DOH, and the national government, especially during times of pandemic. There were times when we had difficulties, especially during the early part of this pandemic, when national agencies were just forcing their decisions on the LGUs without the LGUs being prepared to accept the decisions. And there were cases when during the early part, OWA sent returning overseas Filipinos to Iloilo City without coordination, and turned out to be very difficult on the part of the OFWs when they came here. Ultimately, it is the local government officials, both the mayors, the officials of the city, the municipalities, who have to answer for the real situation on the ground. And I find it very important that what Senator Lina has pointed out, clarification on certain roles, the role of the LGU insofar as the health issues are concerned, and the role of the national government should be clearly clarified. We are very helpful to the Congress, which has approved Bayanihan 1, Bayanihan 2, and hopefully will approve the bill certified by the President on the procurement of vaccines by the LGUs, and also the indemnity clause. We have been doing a lot of simulation, but like the President, I am also getting impatient. I am saying that we are only doing simulation to stimulate our minds, really, because the vaccines are not yet here. So hopefully, with the indemnity fund that will be approved by both houses next week and certified urgent by the President, the vaccines will start coming in and our people will be protected. Second, I am in favor of a vaccine passport. While this is not going to be compulsory, we are not going to achieve a herd immunity if we continue to have people refuse to be vaccinated and we do not achieve 70 to 80% of our population fully vaccinated. It will be very difficult to work in a workplace where people are not vaccinated and they will be in a position to be carriers of the vaccines. And we will never see the end of this. While it will still be difficult for our people to be vaccinated, especially if there are fears on this program, we cannot go back to normal unless we achieve the herd immunity. And a passport is one of the ways where we can achieve herd immunity. At the moment, only 29% of the residents of Iloilo City agree to be vaccinated. And I am going around all different sectors to get their support and to get them also to endorse the vaccines. But it is a very difficult process. And as city mayor, I am working together with the barangay captains, the barangay health workers, our city health officials. But ultimately, I am of the belief that it will be necessary that a vaccine passport will be provided so that we will all be protected and people will agree to be vaccinated. I fully agree that we should start talking about this as a local government chief executive and also with my experience in the House of Representatives, I think we should really start thinking and start talking about the nuances between the national government and the local government. We have always pushed for more funds for the local governments because of some unfunded responsibilities for the local government units. And health is one of them. It is really about time that the Mandana's decision will be applied, and hopefully it will be applied starting next year. It will not be enough, but at least the LGUs will be supported with some resources to be able to fight pandemics like this. Again, I am very helpful. I am very thankful to Senator Lina for inviting me. I really see the need to start talking about this and perhaps in the near future we finally agree whether we really devolve some issues like health to the local government, or we still continue to to baby the local governments. The only way is to follow the local government code and ultimately to come up with the necessary funds to support the local government so that they will be able to battle whatever pandemic we will be facing now or in the future. Again, thank you for this invitation, and I am very grateful that we are starting to talk about this.
Thank you very much, Mayor Jerry Treñas of Iloilo City. Thank you for sharing with us the on-the-ground realities for our reference and appreciation. Right now, we'll have a photo with you and Senator Lina, another duet. Duet lang? Yes. Thank you very much. And with that, we proceed with our fifth and final reactor. She comes from the executive branch. So most of the reactors, of course, also executive branch, but at the local level. And our first two were from the legislative, from the Senate and from the House of Representatives. Our fifth reactor is none other than Department of Health Undersecretary, and we see her often in TV. We're happy she's here, Dr. Maria Rosario Vergeire. Let's welcome her.
Thank you very much, Mr. Atienza. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Good evening, Senator Joey Lina. Thank you very much for inviting the Department of Health into this event. Kay Senator Francis Tolentino, magandang gabi po, sir. Congressman Edgar Chatto, Governor Dax Kua, Mayor Jerry Treñas, and to everybody, good evening to all of you. So I have heard all the reactions of our my fellow panelists, and of course, ito pong mga ganitong inputs ay napakahalaga para sa kagawaran ng kalusugan to consider, and also our ways forward would be something that we can base our ways forward from these different comments. So I'd just like to highlight that this pandemic has exposed the gaps in our health system, both nationally and locally. Nakita po natin yung mga weaknesses, yung mga gaps po ng ating sistema nung nag-umpisa po itong pandemyang ito. It also has emphasized on the various issues of devolution, one of which is the fragmentation of the health services. So nakita po natin nung pinakita ni Senator Joey Lina, yun pong yung kanyang slide na pinakikita kung paano po ang relasyon ng national government at saka mga local governments dito po sa batas ng local government code. Kung saan nakita po natin na na-highlight talaga, especially in this time of pandemic, yung fragmentation ng health services and the functions of both national and local. Si Mayor Jerry Treñas was saying a while ago that there is this seemed like there is this disconnect between the national and local kapag gumagawa tayo ng mga response ngayon dito po sa pandemyang ito. I also would like to highlight that this fragmentation of health services and functions, lalong-lalo na dito sa pandemyang ito, ay nakapagpakita ng isang very weak point dun po sa ating system. And that is the most important thing that we should have right now for this pandemic, which is the surveillance system. Nakita po natin ang local governments na meron hong kani-kanilang disease surveillance, but it is not enough. Nung nag-umpisa po tayo ng response, at even up to now, meron pa po tayo mga gaps and disconnect for surveillance. Nakita po natin yung mga data flows from the national to the local or from the local to the national, which gave us some gaps dun po sa mga nire-report natin ng mga kaso. For example, lagi pong magkaiba ang binibigay ng local at ang national sa reported cases because of this somehow disconnect in our health system. At dito po natin nakikita yung importansya na kailangan po natin mabigyan ng enough solution. Even though we have this devolved system, we need to have that connection between the national and the local government. Also, in this pandemic, it has highlighted the inequities across the different local government units. Nakita po natin na yung ibang local government units ay talagang meron silang resources, meron silang kapasidad para talagang to respond to this pandemic. And we also saw na marami rin pong local governments talaga na talagang they were struggling to respond because they didn't have resources, and wala silang kapasidad para gawin ito po mga dapat gawin para ma-prevent ang transmission ng sakit. But overall, looking at the response, no, for this 1 year response that we had been doing already, this pandemic also highlighted the capabilities and the commitment of local governments to take care and to secure their respective areas. Nakita po natin yan at nakita po ng national government through the DOH kung paano po alagaan ng ating mga local governments ang kanilang constituents na ayaw po nila na may makakapasok at makakapagkalat ng impeksyon sa kanilang lugar. And I think that is that was very critical dito po sa response natin dahil talagang nakatulong po ang localized responses dito po sa sinasagawa natin dito sa ating response for COVID-19. The response of COVID-19 is based on a whole of government, whole of society approach. So gusto po natin, hindi lang naman po talaga national government ang kailangan tumugon dito sa pandemyang ito. Kailangan po sama-sama po tayo na makatugon dito sa pandemya together with local government, civil society, and even the private sector. At nakita po natin that we had been successful in this stance because nakita po natin ang pakikipagtulungan, even the private sector has helped us so much in this response. And we think that this direction and these efforts would lead us to this new normal na sinasabi natin. So ano po ba itong new normal na ito? So sabi ho natin, andyan na yung mga bakuna. And this will be a game changer and we all agree to that. Pero kailangan po maipakita pa rin natin kung paano ho tayo magre-responde even though we know that vaccines are here. Local governments are still expected to lead this response. The national government are the enablers, but the local government would be the ones to implement. At dito po natin inaasahan na ang safeguard po natin kung sakasakaling dadating na tayo sa punto na mag-shift na tayo dito sa new normal o mag-i-ease na tayo ng restrictions, ang local government po, ang kanilang napaka-importanting role would be for them to safeguard that they have better surveillance system, that they will be isolating, quarantining, testing, at securing their borders para po hindi kumalat ang sakit. Lastly, I'd just like to highlight our need and the importance for communication. Sabi po ni Mayor Jerry kanina, sa kanilang lugar, 29% lang ang naniniwala at gustong magpabakuna. And that would be very critical. Tama rin po yung sinabi niya. Kung sakasakali po magpapabakuna tayo at may mga ibang taong hindi mababakunahan, magtutuloy-tuloy pa rin po ang transmisyon ng sakit. So kailangan po itong communication natin, we generate the demand from that people would like to be vaccinated at sana po ma-attain natin yung sinasabi nating herd immunity. Katulad po nung katanungan ni Senator Tolentino kanina, ang herd immunity po natin dapat at least sinasabi po ng ating mga eksperto and WHO, we achieve about 70% vaccinated in our population. And sinasabi rin nila ngayon that because of the detection of the variants, maaring tumaas pa yung requirement para magkaroon ng herd immunity sa isang populasyon. Kaya nga po napaka-importante na lahat po ay mahikayat para makapagpabakuna. And we know that our local governments are champions para po matulungan tayo to increase this confidence dito po sa mga bakunang parating dito sa ating bansa. Gusto ko rin hong tugunan yung sinasabi ni Governor Kuha about the purpose of the vaccine. So kailangan po natin laging maintindihan na ito pong mga bakunang ito ay ang ating first purpose and overall goal for now would be for us to reduce mortalities and morbidities. Yung herd immunity po, dadating po yan. But we know that because of the challenge globally of supplies of these vaccines, baka po medyo sabi nga ang best scenario natin is 2022, yung kalahati ng taon ng 2022, that's the worst scenario. The best scenario is at the end of this year na mabakunahan po. And that would mean that we can attain that immunity at that certain period of time. Pero dito po sa ginagawa natin ngayon, our primary and overall goal for now is to reduce morbidities and mortalities. At paano po natin gagawin yan? Ang bakuna po, ang pangako sa atin, it might not block transmission, Wala pa hong ebidensya na nagsasabi na mapuputol ang transmission. Kapag ikaw ay nabakunahan, maaari ka pa rin magkasakit at maaari ka pa rin makapanghawa. Pero ang pangako niya po, it will lessen the chances of having clinical symptoms. It will lessen the chances of having severe infections and therefore lessening the chances of hospitalization and lessening the chances of dying. At yan po ay napaka-importante para po sa ating population and sa ating health system. So with that, I just like to emphasize that the response against COVID-19 is a shared responsibility between and among all stakeholders. And how successfully this crisis is managed will depend on how well each government is able to face it head-on. But we need each and every one of you. Kaya nga po kami ay laging nakikiusap na magtulong-tulong po tayo. Kasi po tayo lahat champions dito sa pandemic na to. So sana po ay nakapagbigay ako ng maayos na reaction dun po sa presentation ni Senator Lina. Thank you very much and good evening to all of you.
Thank you very much, USEC Dr. Vergeire. We'll now have a, yes, here it is. Smile, please. Okay, thank you, Dr. Vergeire. And we'll have the entire panel for a group photo before our last set of questions. The entire panel, please. Si Mayor Jerry. Okay, let's take this shot. I don't know if the others are still or are indisposed. Okay, thank you very much. And as we wind down, you know, we thought that we can really hit the 9 o'clock limit, but I'm constrained to ask 3 questions that were fielded from the floor. If you don't mind, these are directed to Senator Lina, essentially. From Miss Ofelia Odilao Bisnar. Oh, yes. SVP of ICMA, Student Chapter, one of our strategic partners. She asks, reports have it that the Philippines' COVID-19 management is weak compared to others in the region in terms of death and economic dislocation. Why is this so, Mr. Senator? Senator Lina?
That puts me on the spot. We should ask DOH Undersecretary Rosette. But let me try. I think Indonesia has the highest number of cases. Of course, we are second to Indonesia. In terms of deaths per 100, or I think we are number 3. Indonesia is number 1. Myanmar is number 2. So we're not the valedictorian, no? But indeed, we have many. We should admit the fact that we have many cases, and we're still struggling. But others point to Taiwan and Vietnam and Thailand and Malaysia. Singapore has many cases, but its number of deaths is low. Number of deaths is low. This was not reacted to by, very briefly, was not reacted to by the panelists. I pointed to Republic Act 11332. But we still use EO 168, which is an executive order. But Congress designed a law to meet a public health emergency in a more structured way. And I read its IRR. And the DOH, which prepared the IRR, has everything organized. The epidemiology surveillance unit under the EB, Epidemiology Bureau, and then you have the regional, you have the local counterparts. And the response is already defined, but there should be more details in it. What are we going to do? Every time there's a pandemic, we will always use a task force. But I think the purpose of the law is to have a more permanent body. A more permanent body, not a task force anymore. I think I read the statement of policy and the objectives of the Republic Act 11332. But as I said in my conclusion, at this point in time, we're in the middle of a war. We don't change system. We don't radically depart from what has been planned. But there should be adjustments along the way, especially in the future. Can you imagine under 11332, it's the Department of Health Secretary that should be the commander, overall commander. And then, although he is chairman of the IATF, which is a task force, I read DOH memo being approved by AITF. When under the law, 11332, the commander is the DOH. The lead. As even in EO 102, the lead is a DOH in addressing emergencies. So anyway, I thought that I should have heard something from our panel of reactors, because this is not just a pandemic. We're not stopping here. With the climate change, may climate change. Alam mo na, the forests are getting smaller and smaller. The animals are coming out, and so the infection usually coming from the animals. Anyway,
I think Yusek Vergeire would want to add something, Senator.
I think that my point is very relevant. Moving forward, but I'm not saying let's change the system now, no, because as I said, we are in the middle of war. Departing radically from the present system will do more harm than good. But if we overcome this pandemic, and hopefully so, next time, if there's something lacking in the IRR or in the organization, let's build it up, because that is what the Congress has passed as the measure to address a public health emergency.
Yusek Vergeire, please.
Yes, sir, Senator Joelina and our fellow panelists. I just like to give information to better respond to what Senator Lina is saying. That currently we have this bill in Congress where they are proposing that there should be this Philippine Center for Disease Prevention and Control. This is much like similar to what they have in the United States and the other countries where they have this Center for Disease Control, wherein all of the concerned and relevant units of the Department of Health will be placed under this institution or structure so that we can better respond to this kind of public health emergencies. One of the objectives of this Center for Disease Control here in the country would be for us to strongly lead any public health emergency that will arise in the future. And this will equip our government of this premier or research institution and policy institution that can be able to provide this kind of response. Another thing that is worth mentioning would be that in this institution, based from this proposed bill, would be that this will be able to unify the system for responding from the national to the local government. So we have this bill, and it is already being pushed by Congress so that it can be approved before March. And hopefully this will somehow address this gap that we are seeing right now in the structures of government. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Yusek. I'll jump to the second question so that we can get all three on board. From Dr. Marisa Lavinia, if LGUs cannot deliver the health services, wouldn't it be better if we re-centralized or renationalized? Senator Lina?
I think it will be a retrogression. Health is a very important service. And can you imagine a governor or a mayor or a barangay captain? Chapwera kami dyan, hindi kami involved dyan. Again, following the principle of subsidiarity, it's better that the people below, the ones who are in the front line, are able to understand the problem and come up with solution. But they have to be capacitated. They have to be given all the support, the training, capacity building, and also the necessary funding. The power has been devolved, the services have been devolved, but the appropriate funding was not enough, to say the least. So, Governor Kuwa, sana by next year talaga yung mandanas sa ruling is fully implemented. Walang bawas. Ang problema, mukhang meron pa ring Senator Tolentino should help here. Baka yung pag-implement ng mandanas ruling ay meron pa ring mga na itatago or hindi isasama. And then
let me now interject and ask this third question, and I think the entire panel can chime in, no? Because it says here, third question from Mr. Mike Makatangay of AIM alumni and Mr. Ariel Dries. I combined their questions. If LGUs receive a bigger share of the national taxes or revenues due to the Mandana Supreme Court ruling, how sure are we that the money will not go to waste at the hands of the LGU? So let's start with Senator Lina, and then we can do a round robin.
Well, in my recommendation, it's about time that accountability is also observed and made to work. So Congress, and I'm addressing this to our legislators, Congress can pass a law setting minimum objective standards that must be met by local governments. For example, in health delivery system. With the help of the DOH, those standards can be set. After all, it's in their mandate. But para mayroong power to penalize if it is passed by Congress. I already mentioned Section 105 of the Local Government Code. The DOH Secretary can take over the health operations during pandemic, no? During or epidemic or any public health emergency. So, ang penalty sa mga local governments, if they do not meet the minimum objective standards, until corrected, the DOH Secretary can take over the health operations of a given local government unit. And then, part of the standards will be value for money, based on what should be in place, no? That is how I would attack it. And those who deviate from the standards can face administrative or even criminal sanctions, as the case may be.
I see Governor Kua very animated. Please, sir, could you respond to the question? Will the money go to waste at the hands of the LGU?
Sir Greg, thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to react to a couple of things. I agree fully with what Sir Senator Lina said, na yung re-centralization of hospitals is really going back in time, no, going back to the olden days when everything was centrally managed and quite inefficient because there's just too many hospitals for one central unit to manage altogether. Kaya nga natin din-evolve yan para may local management yung healthcare. Ang kailangan lang talaga support, especially in terms of funding, a little bit of capacity building also to level up the capacity of local hospitals. But definitely support lang. But the LGUs are more than willing and up to the task of managing the healthcare systems. Secondly, yung sa pag-manage po ng pera, tama po yan. That's a question that every Filipino should ask, na saan ba napupunta ang pera. But the odds are when there's more small management units managing that same amount of money as compared to having that centralized fund managed by one unit, then it's easier, it's less prone to abuse. And the abuse will be smaller in scale, if ever there is. But the same system should work, the same safeguard should work, the same commission on audit should perform the task of checking and ensuring that the money is well spent for the public. I agree with that question. Dapat talaga tignan yan. I cannot answer for everybody in the room or all the LGUs in the Philippines, but the system should work. And I think it's far better than having the money centralized and centrally managed.
May we hear from our distinguished legislators, either of Senator Francis or Congressman Edgar?
I totally agree with the comments coming from Governor Dax and emanating from Senator Joey. The principle of accountability is there. And ultimately, accountability will be decided by the ballot box. So I think our local officials now are matured enough to, after going through this pandemic era or exercise, to realize the importance of their functions. And we're maturing. Although hindi siguro lahat na ganon, pero we have to evolve into a matured state, trusting our local officials, trusting the system, and eventually have that notion of accountability devolve again to the people. So ultimately, the people will decide. Thank you.
Congressman Chatto?
Yes, may I say something? Before I became a congressman, I was mayor. And in 1991, when the new local government code was enacted, I saw the shift between the past system and the present. And it's very, very clear to us that at times, the local government units are faulted for something that really cannot be exercised by them to the fullest because resources are not with them. When I became governor, that problem really happened with respect to evolved hospitals. It was so difficult to bring in modernization of hospitals with the meager resources that are generated by local governments. Now that more funds will be coming in, then we would expect better services in our healthcare system and the other devolved agencies. The LGUs need standards as well. I think national government can set that standards in terms of policy measures to be able to monitor on the performance of each LGU. But I would like to say here and now that a lot of LGUs are also excellent and champions in their areas. They're recognized with their excellent capabilities in innovations. And of course, I would also hope that the local autonomy provisions of the local government code and the constitutional basis for the enactment of the local code can be given support by all. And even on the issue of renationalization of hospitals, for example, that has been discussed in the Committee on Health in the House, I would hope that the DOH will come up with their categorical position because the DOH at times will just make a comment. They are not objecting to it as long as the local governments will provide the funds. But the local government, many of those who are filing bills are of the expectation that the bills are being pushed for renationalization because funds are not available at the local. And they expect national government to be able to fund after renationalization. But with the Mandanas ruling, my question is, would national government still have the funds for that? What is important is that Mandana's ruling must be carefully observed, even with the present setup of 40-60. The proposal for 50-50, for example, is a good idea, but I think we should push first on monitoring whether or not the 40-60, as prescribed with the Supreme Court now, is being religiously implemented.
Thank you very much, Congressman Chatto. Yusek Vergeire, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Sir Greg. I agree with Senator Lina that there should be this accountability. the principle of accountability and transparency when the Mandanas ruling will be implemented in 2022. Just like what we had been doing in the past, we have this scorecards for local government. I think that can be utilized so that we can be able to have standards, as what Congressman Chatto has been mentioning about, standards and policies and guidelines, so that all local governments also may be guided, and we can be able to have these transparency measures that they be accountable through these scorecards, that it be published. It's being published right now, but this is really mainly on the different health program services, but it can be further expanded. As to renationalization of the hospitals, I just like to inform the body that it's quite, I'm hearing this commitments coming from our, Governor Kua and Congressman Chatto, but there has been some local governments which are really appealing to us for us to already manage their hospitals, no? So they cannot afford it anymore. So maybe I agree with Congressman Chatto. Maybe when the Mandanas ruling will be implemented and resources are there, maybe the direction would be that local governments can already be able to manage properly the health services that are being provided through our hospitals in the local government. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. One last question. I toss this to the entire panel. You know, one of our objectives in our webinar series is to give good public information awareness to our citizens so that it can help rekindle their interest in the country and the affairs of country. So my question is, last question to everybody, what can individual citizens do that LGUs perform the roles assigned to them and also the national government agencies? What can we do as a citizen? So why don't we start again with Senator Lina?
I'm not in public office now.
As a citizen.
I've been away from government. So as a citizen, I have to make sure that the one who will become mayor, councilor, barangay captain, governor, board member, vice governor, are really deserving of the trust and confidence of the people. They should be competent as well. It starts there, because leadership eventually will make the difference. If we do not have the good leaders, and hopefully we will have mostly good leaders in government, especially in local, then we will see the difference in the life of the Filipino. Una, lokal eh. Kaya nga kanina ipinaliwanag ko, ang lokal, ang nangungunang gagawa, lokal. Kaya mahalaga na iluklok natin yung mga talagang karapat-dapat na mamumuno ng gobyernong lokal.
Okay. Governor Dax, Kua, any prescription for us citizens? What should we do?
I think just keep going, keep doing your thing. Definitely, it will help if you get involved. Get involved with your LGU or with your government in any level you wish, and ask questions. Asking questions leads to finding answers, finding solutions, getting the dialogue going. Just keep asking questions, finding out, and getting involved so that you can be part of the solution.
Salamat po. Senator Tolentino,
Just
same question to you.
To interlock all the answers, be vigilant and participate actively. I was also a former mayor before. I've seen the progress in the mindset of our local officials, especially the barangays. Before, the barangays will just need dump trucks to show their concern for the environment and sanitation. Now, they're more for ambulances. So there's a progression here. So be like what Governor Dax mentioned a while ago, be active and participate, and choose your leaders correctly.
Salamat po. Congressman Chatto?
Question. We've been discussing about resources. for the local governments to be discussing about technical support coming from agencies to the devolved functions of local government units. But one very significant highlight of the local government code between the past code and the present code is people's participation.
Oh.
In the present local government code, people's participation is given a very broad elbow room. And that is the reason why we are encouraging civil society organizations, NGOs, register every year and make them part of the whole process of governance. That engagement is very necessary because as far as local government units are concerned, participation of people leads to more information. It leads also to more education. It leads also to heightening their level of understanding about the political processes, which will lead them into selecting better officials who can be more accountable, who will have the degree of passion to service. So we have to engage with people as far as local officials are concerned. But for the people in the public, they have to engage in government because the local government code is already opening the doors for their participation. And they can demand participation really in the new code.
That sounds like a wonderful idea for a future webinar. People's participation in the governance. And finally, Yusek Vergeire, your take.
Thank you, Sir Greg. I agree with all of my fellow panelists and Senator Lina, that we should be active. We should always participate, and agree also with Congressman Chatto that in the local government code, people's participation was highlighted. And even in the different policies and laws that we have right now, the people-centered response is there. And that by doing that, they may be able to have their voice and yung kanila pong they can easily be engaged, pagka ganon. I just like to highlight also that especially in this situation that we have right now for this pandemic, the voice of the public has been very, very crucial, especially in terms of what government is doing, what local governments are doing. And also, I would like also to highlight that aside from that, national and local governments are doing their thing, their best effort in responding to this pandemic. But people, our public, has that role, very important role, in changing their behavior. So I urge everybody na ang pinaka-importante po na role natin kapag kaga mga ganitong sitwasyon is matulungan niyo po ang national at local government by complying and changing your behavior so that we can all have that better normal that we are all looking forward to. Over to you, sir.
Okay, let's have another group shot. Siyempre, hindi kompleto, Pinoy tayo, kailangan ng photo op. So, big smiles from everybody. And with that, we draw to a close our fifth webinar of our series, the Soul Search series. And before I call back Brother Lito Pardo for his closing prayer, we would like to again reiterate that yes, certificates of attendance are available, and you merely have to avail of this QR code, itapat na nyo yung camera nyo dyan, and to avail of that request. Failing in that, because hindi tayo masyadong high-tech, you can put the request in the chat box. And failing in that, you can go back to the original email that reached you regarding this webinar. All right? So we would like to be of service to everyone, and this certificate request QR code is the fastest way to do it. With that, we would like to call back for a closing prayer Brother Lito Pardo, the elder, one of the elders of the BCBP Las Piñas chapter. Brother Lito.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this moment of grace. We thank you for this opportunity to talk with one another. Indeed, we heard your voice tonight, Father. And we would like to continue hearing your voice as you continue to guide our officials, our local officials particularly, who are in the front line of this fight against COVID. Continue to inspire them and empower them, O Lord, so that we could all be saved from these scourge. Father, all this we ask and pray in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Thank you very much, Brother Lito. And pahabol, remember all the proceedings here. We will upload it in the facebook.com/SoulPH2020. So you can get all of this, all the talks, the slides are there, the songs are there as well. And we hope that you will join us again in our succeeding webinars. Thank you very much at mabuhay po tayong lahat. Patnubayan tayo nawa ng Panginoon Diyos. God bless you all. Thank you. Maraming salamat.